the biggest challenge that we've had, and actually the most indies have, is marketing. It's you think it's the game, but the reality is like marketing is sort of the final boss of every single indie game studio. It's always looming over you. The reason people give away 30% of or more of their total earnings to publishers is almost invariably because of marketing support.
Butterscotch Shenanigans.
Hey everybody, welcome to episode 540 of Coffee with Butterscotch, the game dev comedy podcast of Butterscotch Shenanigans. I'm Seth and I'm the games programmer.
I'm Adam, the miscellaneous programmer.
I'm Sam and I'm the artist.
And this is a show where we talk about life, business, and working in the games industry. Today's September 22nd, 2020 vibes. Before we get started, we have a warning. There's going to be profanity in this show. We'd also like to thank our recurring supporters over at moneygrab.bscotch.net. Thank you so much for your monthly donations to help keep the podcast going. All right, so we're recording this episode only 4 or 5 days after the previous one due to some scheduling stuff, which means that this episode will be out after Crash Institute Update 1.3 goes out and after the Levelhead Daily Deal. And yet, while recording this episode, we have no idea how those things went.
Just as in the dark as everybody else. It's terrible. Can't see anything.
Yeah. So all we've been able to say prior was that Levelhead is going to be on a steep sale. We weren't able to reveal that it was going to be $1.
Yeah.
And it's going to be $1 for like 2 weeks. And it was part of a Steam Daily Deal. And then we're rolling that into the autumn sale. So what we found with Levelhead is that, and we mentioned this last episode, that Levelhead is such a weird case because its wishlist conversion rate is actually quite good. Its click-through rate is quite good, but its sort of immediate conversion rate, not good.
Not at all.
Terrible.
So,
As in, we can get people to like
go
come
to the
store page. But once they're there, we can't get them to wishlist it or buy it. If they do buy it or wishlist, or if they do wishlist it at that point, they're very likely going to buy it.
Yeah, unless it's on sale, like a steep sale.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we had it on sale for $5 or $4 or something earlier this year, and the conversion rate was like 7 or 8%.
Mm-hmm.
And outside of that sale, the conversion rate was 0.6%.
Yeah, you're talking conversion rate from like, oh, I've seen the game to I have now gone to the store and bought it.
No, conversion rate of I'm on the store page.
Got it.
Do I buy it? Right. So like in economics, people
And I think actually
about,
at that point, that was better than Crashlands 1.
yeah,
right?
it was. It was the best one we've had.
Yeah.
And so, like in economics, there's this concept of elasticity of demand, which is as the price changes, do your sales change by more than the price changed, right? So if you cut the price in half and twice as many people buy the thing, then you're no better off, right? And actually, you might have made more work for yourself because now you got twice as many customers to support, but same amount of money, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you want that to be elastic, meaning, if you change the price, if you cut the price in half, then you want like 3 times the sales or something like that. You want it to like leverage up. And in Levelhead's case, every now and then we see these things where we're like, maybe it's a very elastically priced game, where just as the price goes down, the appeal of the game goes way, way up. And so we thought, fuck it. Let's go.
Fuck it.
Let's go for $1.
Yeah.
And just see what happens. And this also implies then that like, if it does do super well, maybe we need to reevaluate just the price of the game generally. That's something that we've been kind of rolling around. But
There might just be a huge mismatch between how we priced it and how it's
What people are
perceived.
willing
And
to
part of
pay,
how we
yeah.
price stuff these days, and how everybody prices stuff these days on Steam, is higher. Is like right at the max of what you think is going to be people would buy it for, because we're assuming that most of our sales will happen during Steam discounts, because that's how modern Steam works. And so people price things based on the idea that you're going to spend, like the games these days spend, what, a third of their time on sale, right? On the stores. And so we kind of price them. So it's like what we're actually hoping for is kind of like what it is when it's 20% off, because it's like always 20 to 50% off
Yeah.
just all the time.
There's also a useful reality in there from like just a business perspective, like a tax perspective, right? Which is one of the major problems with launching video games is the fact that so much of the money typically comes just from the launch window, right? Like the first few months even of a fresh game launch. You know, in the past would be basically most of the revenue for the game. But with how the sales culture has changed now, it actually means that if you price it appropriately and then manage those sales into the future really well, it's almost like you can defer a chunk of that change into the later years, which is actually very good from a business standpoint, because from a tax standpoint, you don't want actually to get like $10 million right now, because all of it just gets taxed to hell immediately.
Well, the reason is your expenses are flat.
Exactly.
So let's hypothetically, using your 10 million number,
Mhm.
if your expenses are $1 million a year, right, and then you take that 10 million and you spread it out over 10 years, then you have zero profit each year, right? It's zero, and what you get taxed on is that profit. It's the net income. It's your revenue minus your business expenses, which usually means paying people, right?
Right.
And so that's fine, and you actually get to like spend the money that you've earned on your people and on your company instead of sending it to the government to do nefarious things with.
Yes.
Right. So if you get that 10 million all in year one, and your expenses are $1 million that year, because that's just what they are, then now you got $9 million of net income, and then you're going to lose 25% of that, so you're going to send several $1 million to the government to make bombs out of or something. Not great, right?
Yeah, so it's the difference between, as you're saying, like if you fully spread it out so your expenses matched your income, right? Then it's the difference between having an extra $1.5 million or whatever, right? By having that spread out. So it is one of the challenges that we are always dealing with as a game studio, especially as a small game studio. Because if you're a big game studio, well, you do a launch every year of a different game, right? Or a few even. And so your portfolio is what spreads all this stuff out. If you're a solo dev, small team, small publisher that can put out one game every few years, then now you're in that position where you're just like, it's a gamble anyway. And then if you are particularly successful, you just 25% of that is gone. And then the next, 3 years later, you launch a game again with 25% fewer resources than you might have had. That decreases the probability of you being successful in the long term by 25%. Right?
I mean, yet again, just like we talked about last week, another reason why being a smaller studio actually makes certain things significantly harder.
Yeah.
One game every 3 years versus a game every 6 months. Like, yeah, you get the big spike of revenue. You pay the most possible taxes on it. Meanwhile, if you're a AAA company, you're probably not paying any taxes at all. So that's the thing that can happen. But yeah, so like with Levelhead, we're just trying to figure out maybe there's something with this game on the pricing side that we can do to push it more, and we'll see.
Well, we've
We'll
talked
see what happens with that.
in the past, because we've talked about this pricing elasticity stuff in video games a fair bit in the past, especially because every experiment we've done to test pricing with our games, every time has shown that as we decrease the price, we got either fewer sales or not enough sales to make up for the decrease, right?
Although I will say our experiments have been a little bit weak in the sense that we haven't been that aggressive about. Like, for example, we never changed the price of Crash.
That's what I was going to say, because
to $3 or something.
Yeah, because we know that the way that these things behave is non-linearly, right? Because we all know that if you see something on sale for 99 cents, that's a different kind of a puzzle for you than if you see it on sale for 50% off or whatever, right?
Or if you see its base price at 99 cents. Like, that's different than it being on sale for 99 cents.
Yeah, exactly. So all these things, at some point, they become different. And we've done significant experiments. So Crashlands 1, we dropped from $15 to $10 for like a 3-month period, right? On Steam. That was one, and that's a 33% drop in price, right? That's a
also
huge
put it
drop.
below one of those like theoretically magic numbers, like sub 10.
Exactly, yeah.
Maybe people are just like, oh yeah, fuck it.
Yeah, because we thought that was a big enough jump, and it moves into a new category of price, $10 versus, like you're saying. And what we saw was that we got a little bit more sales, but nowhere close to enough to make 30% up that
more
30% drop, right? Yeah. And so we had to put the price back, and we did experiments on mobile too, where we went from, because I think our games on mobile were like, $7 or $10,
Mhm.
whatever. And we did significant drops there too, where we dropped it for a month or so. We would like drop it to half off or whatever to see what would happen. And we saw the same thing again. And then we looked at our sales and we saw that when we're doing our sales, if we did like 20% off versus 30% off, the 20% off actually did like generated more revenue, right? Because it was the fact of being on sale seemed to be the thing that was causing people to buy it, not the extent of being on sale. But all of that was within that tight range of like
because
20% off, 30% off, even down to 50% off. Once every time we've gone like into the below or the more than 50% off territory, stuff has gotten weird. Like the dynamics change.
It's like the quantum realm of pricing where it's like,
Yeah.
okay, the normal math doesn't apply.
Yeah.
It's non-linear. Stuff gets weird. Like the most sales we've ever had, I don't remember if we ever talked about it, but it was our last Crashlands 1 daily deal
Mhm.
last summer, I think, where it was
90% off.
It was 90% off, so it was $1.50.
It was $1.50. So basically free. And we moved. Can we say it? Can we say how
Yeah, you
many?
can say, I don't remember
We
how
moved
many
like-
units, but yeah, you can say.
We moved like 200,000 units.
It was
Insane.
bigger than our launch
Yeah.
of Crashlands on Steam. Like,
Yeah.
we did a daily deal and made more money than when we launched the game. So, we talk about how, like,
I don't think it didn't make more money than when we launched the game, but it definitely
Correct.
moved more units.
And way more players.
right, yeah.
It was peak launch. It was peak concurrent activity.
yeah,
for
peak
Crashlands.
concurrent. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking
And it was
about.
the biggest revenue we'd seen in like 4 years,
Yeah.
5 years, something like that, right?
Yeah.
And that's for a game that had been out at that point for 8 years or 9 years or whatever, right? And
And it was the biggest driver, or one of the biggest drivers of Wishlists into Crashlands 2.
yeah,
Just because there's this weird question about digital goods, right? It's like if we were printing CDs and shipping them to stores and stuff like that, and we're like, okay, we gotta now manufacture 250,000 of these so that we
Right.
can
There's a
sell
unit
them.
cost for
Yeah.
us. Right.
But with digital stuff, it's like there isn't that.
Mhm.
It doesn't cost us anything different. It's all proportional. So there's an argument to be made that, like, okay, all else equal, let's say you could make $100,000 in sales this month. Would you rather that $100,000 in sales come from 1 million players or 10,000 players? And arguably, the 1 million players is better.
well, it's one of those. It depends.
It depends,
yeah,
but if your goal is to build up a fan base, build up a community, make your studio better known, and try to build yourself a base of support for future game projects, assuming there's potentially some way for you to
Leverage that.
leverage that
Mhm.
fact, then yeah, go for the million, right? And it does mean you have to think about things a little bit differently, instead of like, my game is worth $20, my game is worth $30 because it's high quality and it's got all these features and comparable games are the same. Maybe that's not what matters, because we're looking at stuff like that game like Brotato,
Mhm. Right.
which is, I think it's $5.
Yeah, $5.
And that game just, it feels like a jam game, kind of, just in terms of like the level of polish and stuff. And I'm not saying that like I'm not disparaging it, because I played it. I played the shit out of it, actually. It's really fun.
It's a good game.
Yeah.
It's you talk about production value, right? It's
Yeah.
like production value of it is not high. That's an easy statement.
Yeah,
That's fine.
But the
It's
thing
not
is, the
like
gameplay is really good,
Mhm.
and the loop is really tight, and it's a fun game to just kind of mindlessly be a potato and blast whatever it is
Mhm.
that I like. There's no story or explanation. You're just apparently a potato, and there's just things coming at you.
Yep.
And you got to blast them. And man, that game just absolutely ragdolled anything that we've made in terms of success. Like Crashlands 2 doesn't come close to Brotato.
Yeah.
It's got, I don't know, tens of thousands of reviews.
Mhm.
Yeah, and so there's something to be said there for like making a game that's pick up and play, fun, cheap, and it just like gets people in the door, and you build up this big following about it.
Well, I think that to me, it's that because I think that's true for sales. Like you can potentially do really well with smaller or even just cheap games that aren't even necessarily small, right? Just because of the volume, you could just sell, because the potential market on something like Steam is so huge that even if you're selling a game for 99 cents to half of the Steam users, there's whatever $30 million right there, right? Like the the scale is just enormous. But when you're bringing people in at a discount, you're also bringing in like the least engaged players, right? And you can see, or the ones that are in terms of converting those players into some future thing, like sales of their game, right?
Well, most of those people won't even boot up the game if they bought it. At a
Yeah,
super
because
steep
they're just
discount.
they're just like throwing in their wish list with some other stuff because they were like, oh, I might as well throw in this 99-cent thing while I'm at it, right? So and that's where the difference between like, do I want 10,000 players or a million players getting, if I'm getting the same revenue either way, right? To me, like once you're kind of hitting that scale in both cases, you actually want the smaller number because those are likely to be more engaged people so that the net effect on you is actually a larger number of people who will buy the next thing, of people who will participate in your community spaces, you know, all that kind of stuff. And you can see this in our wish list data for Crashlands 2, because we were talking about it in a few episodes ago about the wish list decay effect. Does it decay? Then I went back and I actually looked at the numbers and I went month by month to see for each of those cohorts of people who wish listed that month, what was their conversion rate. And it was basically flat, like we thought, with the exception of that month that Crashlands 1 was on its daily deal, which brought us a fuckload of wish lists for Crashlands 2, right? The biggest single spike.
Those are wishes coming in for people who bought the first one for almost nothing.
For
right?
basically for free.
Yeah.
And that was the only month where that cohort's the rate of conversion of that cohort dropped to like a third of what everything else was, right? Because the vast majority of those players, even though they wishlisted the game, didn't buy Crashlands 2 because Crashlands 2 launched at basically 15x the price, right? Of what they bought Crashlands 1 for. And but those players will probably convert at some point, hopefully, right? Once the game gets into that cheap enough realm to feel like it's proportional basically to what they spent. But also maybe not. Maybe those players came in, threw it into their bucket of games, never even played Crashlands 1, wishlisted Crashlands 2 while they were at it because they just followed, they're just following the call to action. Just they did it and we actually played it and so don't actually care, So who knows what that'll actually do. But all that said, it's still better to have a lot than to have a little of whatever the thing is.
And that's something that we'll be thinking about more as we work on how many dudes, as we think about Levelhead pricing, stuff like that, where it's like, I don't know, maybe we need to
try a cheap game. I don't know.
Just try some stuff. Yeah. Speaking of how many dudes and wish lists, let's talk about YouTube shorts. Trust me, these things are related.
Speaking of this and that, let's talk about another thing.
Let's talk about a third thing.
Yeah.
So we mentioned last episode that we had started making some YouTube shorts, and we hadn't really released any of them at that point, other than ones from our podcast clippings. So these new YouTube shorts were experiments to test. Can we get people psyched about how many dudes? Can we get people psyched about Levelhead? Can we make YouTube shorts that actually grow our subscriber base on our YouTube channel? Can we drive traffic to Steam? Just all these different questions.
Yeah, and how hard is all of that, at the same time, right?
Yeah. So Sam, talk about the how many dudes short that you made.
Yeah. So this has been really interesting because, we spend, in the past, we spent a lot of time on trailers, right? And in the case of how many dudes, we did put up a trailer for it.
A teaser trailer.
A little teaser, yeah. Which is like 30 seconds long. It's like almost nothing. And that was just so we could stand up the Steam store page, right? But we threw it up on YouTube and it's got like 1,000 views. Okay, whatever. And it's basically like 30 seconds long. It's no time at all.
I think it might be 15.
Yeah, but
it's really short.
So when we were getting all these plans put together for the update for Crashlands 2, as well as for the daily deal for Levelhead, we thought, okay, well, let's, while we're making some for those, let's just throw one for how many dudes up and just kind of see how it does. And format wise, we were kind of following structurally an approach that we saw from one of the Jonas High Roller interviews with this guy who made, I can't remember what the game's called now. It's like this yellow cartoony stuff. And it basically says, all you do is you just start with like a fun question or a fun problem you run into, or even just a design that you're framing as a problem. And then you answer that in some way while showing kind of what happens. So you say like, what goes into making a cool power up for our indie game? And then it's like, here's what it is. Here's what we did. That's it. Right. So real easy, real simple to make. So we sat down and hammered out like 10 of these things, put up the how many dudes one just kind of immediately once we finished it, because we realized that like, we don't need to time anything. We also don't even know if you can time these things because we've not done this before. So
like we mentioned in the past, don't try to time it. Don't be like, I got to hold on to these until the last
Yeah.
possible moment. It's like,
we're trying to get
just
less
send it.
precious, you know?
But
Yeah.
also
So we're
the
just
cost
like,
of making them is low, right? And which means you can just put another one out.
you could just,
like,
you could
it's
just
less
send,
precious than when you're making a trailer where you invest like 2 weeks of time, and if you're hiring an outside person, maybe literally $10,000, right?
Yeah.
Because that is what it costs to hire a professional to make a game trailer.
Mhm. Yeah. And so we basically we finished the How Many Dudes short and then chatted about it and we're like, fuck it, just sent it. And that thing's gotten like 35,000 views or something at this point, or close to it. And also it has the tiniest little like call to action toward the end, which is basically along the lines of like, this game just turned out so funny that we decided to make this for a real game. You can find it on Steam. And it just has like, you could see someone typing it in, How Many Dudes. And that freaking short has given us 250 wish lists for How Many Dudes, which in terms of like marketing effort, this is like really important. I don't know another time when we've been able to do something and see that amount of wish list support from an activity we directly did. Like we've done Reddit ads, we've done YouTube ads, we've done all these things. Adam, I can't know if you can remember since you've run the stats on all of it, but I don't remember anything we've done that.
It's bad. It's all bad.
It's all bad. It's always like you can just
when
never see it move a fucking needle.
It's all about the ROI, right? It's how much
Yes.
money with YouTube ads. I don't remember the numbers offhand, but what we definitely saw was that we were doing worse than breaking even on the like expected value of a wish list, right? And so for expected value of a wish list, you say like, oh, it's on average 25% of these convert. It depends on the game, right? But on average, 25% of these convert. Usually while it's on sale, so let's just assume that it's converting at like half the base price. You kind of like play that game to get a sense of what's the actual return that we're getting out of this. And every time we've done this with ads of any kind, whether it's PC gamer ads, we like take over a bunch of store page stuff, or whether it's YouTube ads where we just drive up visibility on our trailers, or the outcome is basically always the same, which is we basically spend roughly twice as much money as we're getting back on the other side, right? And the number of and usually working that in wish lists or in direct sales, depending on if the game is out. And like the conversion is so low and it's so bad every single time. But importantly, the cost is really high of doing that every time. Because if the conversion rate is low, which is true on shorts, right? Because a couple hundred wish lists out of 35,000 views, right? That's a terrible conversion rate.
Oh, absolutely atrocious.
But atrocious, right?
In terms of
cost,
energy, yeah,
the cost of us getting there was whatever, a couple hours of time, something like that, right?
it's like 40 minutes.
It's not even that.
Yeah.
It's not even about the cost. It's about the potential, right? Because like 35,000 views, 35,000 views for a short is not that good.
Yeah, that's also true.
Like the way that the shorts work is they will be guaranteed to be shown to somewhere between like 100 and 1,000 people to get an initial sampling of whether there's kind of like two primary metrics. It seems like first one is, do people swipe away or do they stick around and watch? So it's basically like in the first 3 seconds of the video, do people move on? Do you have a hook, basically, is what that measures, right? And then the other metric is what proportion of people are still there by the end of the video. I don't know why. I don't know why that is a metric, but that's one that apparently matters a lot. And so with the How Many Dudes short, it was it was about 65% of people stuck around after the initial hook, and 70% of those people were still there at the end. And so those are like
they're basically like, good, not great.
They're good. They're good numbers, and so they're good enough that YouTube is like, yeah, we'll show this to like 30,000 people, right? If you can get those numbers closer to 90, as in like 90% of people stick around, and then 90% of those people are still there at the end, then that's the difference between 35,000 views and 35 million views. Like that's the moment where because we used to talk about things going viral. Yeah. And that's not how it works anymore. Because like things going viral in the past was people would virally spread it. That's why we call it going viral, because it spreads like
because this person shares with 2 people, that person shares with 2 people, and that's
Now it's manufactured. It's there's a machine over at YouTube that decides whether something will be shown to 30 million people people are not spreading it themselves. YouTube is deciding. And it's just based on those engagement numbers. And so, but kind of by comparison, you know, we have our podcast shorts where we've clipped out little snippets from the podcast. Those don't do well. So we're going to have to change some things, right? But
or just accept that that's it's just a different kind of thing. It's just like not, the likelihood of something like that doing well is also just super duper low, truthfully, like just format wise, right?
Yeah.
It's not as visually engaging. And so the thing is, we were pleased with Punch for the last couple of weeks. We've been doing this because we've been getting like more than 1,000 views on each one of those shorts we've uploaded from the podcast.
I think on average it's like 1,600 or something like that.
Yeah, which is amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing spread in terms of like before, which was, you know, nothing happening.
nothing. Yeah.
But then, we start putting out these actual game-oriented ones, which of course are just, they're more visually interesting and they got like a little story happening in it. It's not so much.
But they also
us.
just have a bigger audience. The fact is, like,
Yes.
as popular as podcasts are, they're not popular. You know what I mean? They're still a niche. They're still a niche thing. And there just aren't that many people who want to stick around. And there's an energy problem too, right? Because we're hanging out and we're having a good time. We have fairly expressive voices. If you're just you know, listening to this as we're talking, it's fairly expressive. But also we're talking about business shit, and we're talking, you know, we're having serious discussions about things.
It's not inflammatory. You know what I mean? It's not.
It's not inflammatory. It's not super high energy all the time. And that kind of content is, there's a niche for it. This is for people who are chilling out, who are enjoying long form content where every single second isn't like dense, right?
Right.
They're here to kind of hang out with us. And that kind of an audience, like, that's not very compatible with YouTube Shorts in particular, right? Because that's about high energy, instant engagement, very dense in terms of.
I mean, like, things like I've been very happy with how those have actually turned out. But I think there's like other formats for it that we could do where, you know, people do stuff where they split the video. So it's like, then there's just like gameplay or something happening underneath someone talking. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's like two things happening at once. There's just a little more to see while whatever the facts are unspooling on top. So
Well, it can also work because, of course, we're making games, right? Stuff that's
Exactly.
like gameplay stuff from our games below it. Then
so there's like a few more there's structural formats to change up on like the podcast side, but like, you know, content wise, it kind of is what it is for us. But it was fascinating seeing these things like we can see them just ride the algorithm. It's like how many dudes short just go brrr, and then just goes flying off. And the fact that it then resulted in all those wish lists. I mean, for me, it's like, feels like discovering fire again in a way where it's like back in the old days when we were getting started, like around 2013, 2014, it's closer to what actually the social networks did feel like, because we were slowly growing our audience. We could put stuff out there and it would get responsed. We wouldn't have to like pay to push it, you know, to our people who we already spent a lot of energy collecting.
We had thousands of Facebook followers back then, and we could make a post and 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 people would see the post.
Yeah.
And then suddenly one day a switch flipped over at Facebook, and they're like, okay, now we're only ever going to show your post to 1,500 people no matter what you do.
You got to pay us.
You pay us like $20 for an additional X number of people, and if you want more people to see it, you just got to keep paying us more. And so we just straight up stopped using Facebook that day. Like, we
just literally never use it again.
Yeah. And most of the social media platforms have sort of followed that nonsense for us. But, you know, then when you come to something like Shorts, it's better aligned actually, like incentives wise, and because the need to basically, you don't have to overproduce the content, right? I mean, literally, in that, how many do shorts that did really well? There's a point where I wanted to show the two choices you have on screen of like click on this or click on this, and the reality is that those are at the bottom of the screen for the game. So I pull it up to put them in the middle so you can see them, and there's just a big black empty space below.
There's just nothing underneath.
And I was just like, I mean, I've seen stuff like this on Shorts that has like bajillions of views. Of shit. Send it, and it worked. And again, it's like way better than a trailer that we put together as far as that engagement.
Importantly, though, this is where things get really interesting. Is you can start to see what matters, because you can look at drop off. You can go into the videos analytics, and you can see what proportion of people are still watching the video at 10 seconds, 12, 13, 14. And what you'll see is, like, in the How Many Dudes video, when that pops up on screen and there's just a big black void underneath, not a single person
gives a shit.
Not a single person swipes away from the video.
Yeah.
They just keep watching. And it lets you kind of hone in on what actually matters. And we found stuff like, why is it that on TikToks and YouTube Shorts, people do this really rapid cut editing, right? Where there is not a single pause
Yep.
breaths are cut out, words just chained together back to back. Well, the reason is, you'll see this in the analytics. If you pause for more than a single second, you lose half of your viewers. It's insane. People are just like, I'm bored, and they just swipe away
Yep.
immediately. I can't wait for this sentence to finish. What? Are you kidding me?
Yeah,
So,
we were pleasantly
yeah.
surprised by the How Many Dudes one, and then that was like, okay, well, we stocked up a bunch of these ones for Levelhead and a few for Crashlands too, and so we were like, well, let's send a few of those over the weekend, because it looks like if these things unspool into any kind of basically larger arc of viewership, that happens over actually quite a long time. So it's like you basically get these like pulses every like 12 or so hours as it's figuring out, as it's kind of expanding the ring. And those get bigger for a while, and then they kind of taper off depending on how successful it is. So we're like, before this Levelhead Daily Deal pops on Saturday, it'd be good for us to actually have done a few of these Levelhead ones so we can better tune them, right? To figure out
do some experiments.
Yeah, or just have them running, because they'll be running at scale then, if one of them happened to work well. And so Seth put together a couple of them, one of which was this a troll level one. So it just showcases how to build a troll level. And that one, had pretty good engagement, pretty good views, right? But a higher swipe away rate. Like people didn't stick around right at the front.
No, people stuck around at a 75% stick around rate. But only like half of people were still watching it halfway through.
Yeah.
So that one got about 10,000 views. So much better than our normal podcast clips, but not nothing close to the How Many Dudes one, because the How Many Dudes one kind of had the inverse, where it was like more people would swipe away, but the people who stayed just stayed. They just stayed and watched the whole thing. Yeah, and then I made one about the zipper power up, which as of now has about 24,000 views, and that one kind of similar. It's like 3/4 of people stick around to watch it.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think 70% of people are still there at the end.
It actually outperforms the How Many Dudes one. And I think this is where it gets interesting though, because I saw that and I was like, oh, sick. I'm going to go look at the wishlist data for Levelhead and see maybe we got another 200 wishlists for Levelhead before the daily deal, which would be amazing. No movement. Row. Not detectable. And I was like, oh, but the game's actually available for sale. Maybe people just fucking bought it. Go look at the product data. Zero movement. And
which again tracks with our experience, which is maybe it's just too fucking expensive.
Well, maybe. But then also it was this recognition that okay, but one of the major differences is just the fact that there exists a somewhat of a call to action in the How Many Dudes trailer. Right at the end, just saying a little bit. Hey, it's on Steam and showing it. Not super pushy about it, not go wishlist it. It's just oh yeah, we put it on Steam. Same shit, right? And so now we have, going into this week, we're like, okay, let's try a few more of these experiments. Let's see what happens if we do a Levelhead video, which again is stickier than the How Many Dudes one. That's in the same format, talking about power up or something, and put a tiny little shtick about Steam right toward the end, and just see if it works, because if we could start doing this stuff ourselves, the biggest challenge that we've had, and actually the most indies have, is marketing, right? It's you think it's the game, but the reality is marketing is sort of the final boss of every single indie game studio experience. It's always looming over you. The reason people give away 30% of or more of their total earnings to publishers is almost invariably because of marketing support, right? It's not having to deal with it, not having to bother with it, or just by knowing that somebody knows how the fuck to do this, and largely
hoping,
and I think that's what it comes down to.
Yeah.
Our experience has been that it's been so hit or miss trying to figure out how to get this stuff to work, that it just feels really nice to have what feels like an inkling of a direction we can go in as far as content that's easy for us to internally produce. We don't have to involve third parties. It's not we don't have to give up a lot of revenue in order to do it, right?
Well,
it's a little bit of time.
This is what's good about this is it cuts out human gatekeepers.
Yes.
Because if we make something that's really high energy, some of our, we would go back and look at some of our old Levelhead trailers.
Hilarious.
Those things are great, right?
Yeah.
We around the Levelhead launch, we sent these to thousands of people, and those people were like, I'm not gonna. In most cases, they didn't even watch it, right? We can see the view counts on the unlisted, and they just never opened our emails. They never looked at the trailer. Blah blah blah. And so with the YouTube shorts, if you make something that is interesting to people and has a good hook to it, then they'll see it. It
Well,
just,
you
it
don't
just
have-
goes
you don't have
straight
to
to
solve
them.
the you don't have to solve the first how do I get
Convincing
them to
somebody
watch
else
it?
to show
Well,
it.
not even
So-
like I said, there's 2 parts. So yeah, it's convincing somebody else, but the very front of this problem is convincing somebody to watch it, right? And I think that's the biggest difference
That's true.
between
Yeah.
short form video content
Right.
and their algorithms and something like a trailer. And like you still need like all these have a different purpose, right? But when it comes to the short form content, you're taking advantage of the fact that the platform's purpose is to deliver random entertainment to the viewer. So it's literally a discovery system. That's its entire purpose. It's not like they all have search technically, but if you've tried to
It's like
search any of those
It's like
things,
stumble upon.
it's a stumble upon for video for those millennials who remember what stumble upon used to be, right? It's that for video content. And so when you make something, you're bypassing the whole process of trying to figure out how do I now get this shown to people, because it just
will be
gets
shown,
to
and then
people.
if it works, it will just go. And that's such a huge difference from like having to convince someone to show it to people first before you can even see if that happens, right? And so it's been like they're very fun to put together too, because to Seth's point, you can just have different ideas about like what might work, and then you could just fucking try it in like half an hour or something. And it's just not that big of a deal, you know what I mean? And
Well, and I
everyone
think-
can inform each one as we go forward, you know?
Yeah.
Which is
And I think a big part of that is along the same lines again, because it's something you worry about a lot if you have a subscriber base. So think about like our newsletter, right? We worry a lot about the content of each one of those newsletters, because if we flub that content, if we give people something they don't expect, they unsubscribe and then they're gone forever. And our ability to now deliver stuff to those people just keeps going down, right? And so it's a high, like any piece of content we deliver, high risk, because it's got to be fine tuned to what they expect. That's also true for your proper YouTube channel, because if you've got subscribers, they have expectations about what's going to go in there, right?
Mhm.
And so they get an alert. They're like, oh, you got a new content. If it's not what they expect, they're going to
They're gone.
unsubscribe, right?
Mhm.
And so something like the short system allows you to do these experiments and take risks and put up effectively the same video twice, right? Without causing that same kind of a problem, because the primary audience is not your subscriber base.
It's never going to
It's-
be, like, especially if something goes viral, right? It's always going to be
It's always other
random new
viral.
people. Yeah.
Yeah.
Viral, cool. Yeah. So I think it's been it was really exciting last week, basically putting all this stuff together, and it was just very fun. And we'll be doing a few more this week, trying to figure out just a couple different angles for Levelhead in particular, some additional ones for Crashlands, and then I think we're just gonna start sending them like a couple every day, you know, just to see what works, what doesn't. And part of this is also then informs some of those base design decisions around something like, how many dudes or whatever else. One of the things that we noticed that was interesting is that just because of course, it's a jam game, so the cameras are always tricky in video games as far as like when to know what to look at or when to zoom out and include people or whatever. And in How Many Dudes case, actually, it's one of those funny ones where it's kind of hard to capture the action because the camera tries to fit everybody in at all times, which typically means that because of how things spread on screen and like fight in corners or whatever, that you end up the very middle of the screen
There's
is
nobody there.
empty. So there's phrases like that where it's like, oh, okay, if you want to make it easy for other people to like put together funny things about this, or even for ourselves, we need to figure out a better way of handling the camera. You know, it's like there's a few of those pieces in there. And then one of my favorites has actually just been like asking people, getting comments from people for a game that's in progress. This is what I'm most excited about, actually, for once we fully switch over to How Many Dudes, because our plan is to do it much more in the open than previously. We've talked about some aspect of it being on itch or whatever else early, doing some live updates, right? But the fact that you could then like put these shorts out and kind of get some of these comments from people asking about what else should we put in here, you know? And it's just really fun having that. Reminds me of early access with Levelhead, like having that actual community engagement on the dev process is just really interesting. So I don't know, it feels very optimistic, I guess, you know, for the first time in a while in terms of
We
marketing.
can do something.
If we could
Like,
do it,
yeah.
yeah, you could go pull a lever yourself instead of being like somebody.
And you get
Somebody help me.
feedback right away, right?
Yeah.
Because like when you send 1,000 emails and you
Yes.
just get ghosted 1,000 times, you're like, what happened?
Did people watch it? Did they not watch it? Did
You
they?
get, you get no feedback,
Were
right?
they busy? Yeah.
Yeah, but with these shorts, like I was saying, you can see, like the Levelhead troll video, originally had more on the ending, which was like, you know, if you want to play more levels like this, like go to the tower, and then we got thousands of these troll levels, you know, blah blah blah. So it was, I think, like 4 seconds at the
Yep.
end. We found was that in those 4 seconds, we went from like 70% of people to 25.
Yep.
So in those
Everyone's
4
like,
seconds,
the video is over.
the
Actually,
video's over, I guess, and I literally can't stick around for 3 more seconds. I can't do it. There's so many more videos for me to watch, right? And so they just swipe. And the other thing about this is that those lessons, I think, kind of translate over to other aspects of design. Because we had talked about when we were making How Many Dudes, like, okay, this game needs a hook. We can't just make a good game. We need a game that when you say the elevator pitch, when you say the premise of the game, people are like, tell me more, right?
Yeah. You don't have to tell them the genre. You just tell them what the game's about, and they're like, I'm in, regardless of the shape of this. Okay,
It's a game about how many dudes does it take to beat up a gorilla.
Yep.
That's all, and then everything else is just details,
Yep.
Yeah, and so the same principle applies with working on these shorts, which is like, you've got to figure out how to hook people in right away. And so in a weird way, it's kind of a way to hone your game design skills to
100%,
figure out how to get people captivated instantly, and then how to keep them there and keep the momentum going.
And it's not just that bit of it, because the point that Sam made earlier is really important, right? Is if we go back to Crashlands 1, Crashlands 2, even Levelhead, when we were trying to make trailers, so like we had the game basically done, and then we make a trailer. And as we're making the trailer, it's so fucking hard to make a trailer, right? So much effort, so much, and it's just so difficult. And the whole time we're doing it, something that should, like a bell that should be going off in our brains is, if we're hoping that people make their own content based off of this game, it's not going to be any easier for them. It's not going to be any easier for a streamer to make content that's compelling. It's not going to be any easier for a reviewer to make their video summarizing what this game is, right, than it is for us. And I think it's the same thing with with these YouTube shorts. As we're working on these YouTube shorts, figuring out, especially with a new game, with How Many Dudes, discovering what's hard about making video content about this game, right? Because anything that's hard for us is going to be hard for anybody else too. So this idea of being like, realizing that, when we're making our vertical videos, that it's really hard to capture the action means that's going to be true for anybody else trying to make content for How Many Dudes, right? If we're finding it to be the case that we're struggling to find a moment that we can capture that feels complete and really compelling at the moment, or if there's something about how the animation is done or the color palette or whatever, right, that makes it so that it's just really hard to capture a moment, which with Crashlands 2 we struggled with, because for capturing like still images, right, it was because of the animation style, capturing a moment where there isn't something smeared weirdly was incredibly challenging. And so we built some developer tools to help with that, right? And fortunately, people don't take stills of things as a way to sell stuff, so that wasn't something we did with other people. But the idea is the same, right? It's trying to figure out, like, what is hard about making the kind of content that we would hope that other people are also making, and making sure that we're shoring that kind of stuff up. But the only reason we would be doing that is if we're actively making that kind of content.
Yeah, you just can't know
during game development.
Well, and this comes to kind of the integration lesson, right? We've done this with other things, which is once we figured out localization, we were like, okay, we need to be building the game with localization as part of the development loop, just from the beginning, and be planning for that. Same thing with controller support and whatever else, which is like, if we plan on ever having this, then we need to be constantly integrating controller support into the UIs throughout development. We never did that with marketing. Marketing was always like, oh God, now the game is done. Now we have to market it.
It's almost like porting. You know what I mean? Like a lot of studios port after the game's done, and that's where all these problems come up. But if you think about being able to have a build of the game for any other device, a touchscreen, a controller, whatever else, anyone that's not the native one that you're building directly for, being able to have that build right now as opposed to post-launch means that you will have already solved in a much better way, typically, all of those high-level problems associated with it. And so integrating marketing in it, in the same way that now we have integrated QA, we don't, like, everything is just in-house, right? Because every time that we've moved things from being like an external thing or something we do very rarely to being something we do essentially, weekly or on the daily, it's informed not just that process, but it informs the whole chain of how a game gets made, designed, and then pushed out the door, right? And in a way that always makes for far more efficiency in terms of like getting what you're trying to get out of QA, getting what you're trying to get out of marketing. Like all these things let us see, even with the Levelhead videos, it lets us see what is someone actually going to care about in terms of this game. Because again, the game's big. It is a big game, and it's a maker game, but it's like what parts of that actually hook people into view in the first place. And that was a question we never could. We have a few different videos, like trailers and stuff, that are like much longer form that take slightly different angles on this, right? But is it building? Is that actually the thing that would get someone in the door to look at? Is it power ups? Maybe it's just power ups. That'd be much easier, you know. And like currently,
And we
it's what it
also
looks
always
like.
thought it was all of those things, but you can't.
You can't do all of
You
them.
have one choice when someone lands on your store page on Steam, right? There's a first trailer, and that's the one that has to do the job of selling whatever is the most powerful thing for the game. And we've
Only
just
have
had
one.
to guess.
Mhm.
We just have to guess, and the cost of guessing when you're just making trailers is truly enormous because the cost per trailer is so high that you can only ever make a small number of them. But more importantly than that, even, you can only show one. You could just, or maybe a few, but like there's a first one. That's the one that people will actually watch, is whatever that first one is. And there isn't like Steam. It looks like maybe they're working on A/B testing for some of that content, but they don't have it now and they haven't historically. Some of the stores, so Google Play and the App Store both do some amount of A/B testing. And we even saw with that. So on iOS, I did an A/B test when we launched Crashlands 2 with the two trailers we have, just which one was first, right? And depending on which one was first, we literally saw a 10% change in conversion rates, right? Just by which one was first. And so
which one was it? I remember which one like won technically.
I don't remember, but there wasn't any like logic to it, you know, like there was no way to look at it and be like, oh, I see. That makes sense to me why that happened,
Because the trailer's doing a lot of things.
Yeah, it's doing a lot of stuff.
You know?
And it was literally like for iOS, I just literally took the trailer we have and cut it in half because they need to be shorter on mobile anyway. And then just like tried it with one half before the other one. And just one of them just was 10% more effective, right?
Yeah. So what this allows for though is like over time, if you're just constantly doing this, if every week, hypothetically, over how many dudes production, if every week we are making a YouTube short about something in the game that we're working on or that we just finished or an idea we have or a problem we're solving or whatever, then by the time we get around to launching the game, we have a treasure trove of data about what is it that gets the people going. Like which things have we made videos about that have really resonated with people? But also at that point, like I was saying earlier, the difference between 35,000 views on a YouTube short and 35 million views is like a 10% jump in engagement, right?
Yeah.
And so it's also possible that by that point, we don't need to worry about marketing as much.
That's true. Yeah.
Because if we've gotten one of these hits, if we get 250 wish lists from 35,000 views,
amazing.
How many do you think we would get from 35 million views?
Yeah, and to put that in context, I do want to put that total number in context because so general rate is like if you have an indie game on Steam and you have your store page up, if you want to have it be like, essentially like in the upper tier of indie launches, you want to be having passively above 100 wish lists a day. Passively, like you're not doing anything, they're just happening.
Yeah, 100's kind of the floor for passive wish lists if a game's gonna kind of do anything once it gets.
And for Crashlands 2, that for us was between like 1 and 300 daily, depending on also what Crashlands 1 was doing because of the fact that we had like wishlist call to action inside of that. So we knew from the jump that like Crashlands was performing effectively as far as like that particular baseline benchmark that we want. And so the fact that you could, that's why I'm saying it is a big deal to be like, we can put out a short ourselves. We don't have to depend on anybody else. And we could put 250 wish lists in. We basically can put like 80 to 100 wish lists into that daily counter every day. And those things are easy to produce, which means that like over the course of dev, there's literally thousands of wish lists you're talking about, right? Become available to us.
Well, it's a self-perpetuating thing, right? Because we've joked maybe 4 or 5 episodes ago about how many dudes has a over 100% click-through rate because Steam is not showing the game to anybody at this point. And that's even more true now. Like our click-through rate is like nearing 200% because we're sending so many people there through these external mechanisms, and Steam is not doing a single thing to show the game to people. And that'll probably still be true until we have a release date or until we start to hit some threshold of self-driven wish lists where Steam is like, oh, people are just coming to this game. I guess we'll start showing it, right? Because that's just how the algorithms kind of work.
Yeah,
And so-
they're all feedback loops.
Yeah.
positive
So it's like, okay,
and
we actually have some stuff we can do now to juice this feedback loop. And we
Man,
still
that
haven't
feels
we still haven't sent out a newsletter about how many dudes. We haven't done any sort of direct active promotion of it other than just like talking.
But a lot
about
of that
it
is
through the
for that
podcast.
same reason that we were talking about earlier, right? Is
It's more precious.
for most ways of getting stuff in front of people, you don't have, and especially for like a newsletter, because a newsletter isn't at all like this kind of content. Because a newsletter, everybody who reads your newsletter will read it. Everybody will, right? It's not like a tweet where like you've got 100,000 followers, 1% of them will see any given tweet, right? A newsletter, everybody who would does, right?
As in,
Everybody, right?
you mean it goes in their inbox and they
It goes to their
clock it.
inbox.
Yeah.
And if they're the kind of person who cares about your newsletter, they're going to read it. It's the same people.
So it'll be
every
like
time,
a
right?
third of your total number of subscribers
Yeah,
will read.
it's a
the
huge,
email.
huge fraction, right? And that means that you don't get second chances. You don't get to send them the same content twice with a slight variation, right? You don't get to do that stuff in that context. And so we treat all of those things as like, that's the big gun. We got like one trigger. So we have to make sure everything is in its best possible position for conversion rates before we go fire off the newsletter, right? We don't have to do that for shorts because if it goes well, that's great, but it didn't cost us anything. We can put out another one. We could put out a slight variant on that one and keep on like trying slight differences to see if we can get better outcomes. It's just an incredibly different way of doing this kind of stuff where the risks are much, much lower. The costs are much, much lower. You don't have the same long-term investment. The other thing too with the newsletter is like we've built that up over literally a decade, more than a decade. It's a decade of effort to build our newsletters subscriber base, right? And
30 minutes on a short.
yeah, or we can
And it
spend
goes
40
to
minutes
more
on a short.
people.
Right.
Yeah, and so I don't know, it's a weird, but I think to that idea too of if we're doing this while we're in development, we've got the store page up so we can capture wish lists. We don't worry too much if how many dudes is putting its best foot forward as a Steam page. We know it's not because we don't even know what the game's going to fully look like when it's done, right? It can't possibly be putting its best foot forward right now, but it exists. And so, as Sam said, back to that idea of it's better to get people whenever you can than to be like, let me save it all up at the end. But that's only true if you have multiple shots at something.
Yeah.
If you've only got one shot, that needs to be,
And everything has to just be so perfect, you know?
everything has to be perft. And that's
Man,
sick of
I'm
it.
just over that.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
sick of
it
that
sucks.
shit.
Yeah, so if we could just not do that, that's a lot better. And the other thing too is we then have all this data too. Like as you guys are saying, as we're putting those videos out, we see what ends up being really compelling to people. That tells us because ultimately we do have to have a Steam store page. We do have to have a trailer that works on Steam.
Yeah.
We have to have all of this stuff eventually because even if we can do really well with things like YouTube Shorts and that kind of stuff, that's nowhere near, not even close to what Steam can do. Yeah. Our best case scenario with the most viral bullshit, like on any other platform, will come nowhere close to what needs to happen on Steam for the game to actually be successful. But all this stuff that we're doing gives us that information where we can see like, oh, players are really responding to this element. So that should be front and center in our trailer. This hook that we did on this short, like 100% of people stayed in. They were bought in the moment they saw the hook. That's the start of our actual trailer for the
100%.
real
Yeah,
store
yeah.
page, right?
That's what
We
I'm
get to
excited about.
learn all this kind of stuff by actually seeing what
It's like,
people
I
do.
guess it's like, it lets you hone your taste. Because the thing is, it's taste. I guess it's like, we never put anything out where I'm like, this is obviously bad. Like, I would never do that, right? It's just that the reality of your taste about like what exactly it is that you should be putting it up front, what should be taking a backseat for this particular moment. You know, if you only get like one or two shots to do it, it's not really about honing your taste at that point. You're just fucking gambling. You know what I mean? Like, you can have really good
it is
taste.
gambling.
And it's like, okay, well, I think power-ups are really cool, but I also think the level builder is like really cool. I got to pick one because I have one shot. So it doesn't matter that my taste says both might be viable because I only get one. So
You can't have taste.
you
About
can,
your
yeah, you don't
own-
get to have taste. It's
It's,
just
it's
gambling.
kind of like how
Well, it's not about taste. I think it's more accurate, right? It's about what people are going to end up responding to. And we've always said
What's what it
nobody
moves
can
to.
guess
Yeah.
what games are going to be successful. Nobody can guess what games are going to be a mega hit versus just a hit versus.
And that means you also can't guess what part of your game is the most important part to focus on to allow someone to get excited about it, right? Whether it's a small audience, big audience, whatever. And you will know that there are, you will know what the parts are. That's like not going to be confusing. You're going to be like, the fact that my character moves left is important. No one gives a shit.
It is.
It
It is
is, but, like,
important.
yeah. The fact that like we have a really good save to disk time, no one cares about. Like you're like, you know that, But beyond, once you get into the category of things that like obviously are cool, we have cool boss fights, we have crafting, we have pets, we have this quest system, we have all this other stuff. It's like you got too many to choose from. And if you only get one shot, it just doesn't matter. Like you can't, that's not good odds. You know what I mean? So you got to be able to figure out how to sell the thing. And I think this gives us a path in a very different way. And like I'm just very excited about it, if you can't tell.
Yeah, and when people do this with like historically the whole time we've been doing this for more than a decade, people have talked about all kinds of ways they try to make these kinds of data-driven guesses about, oh, this part's compelling. Ooh, if we have this title, then this is going to work better. And and they use whatever they have available. And like historically, that's been things like Google AdWords, right? Where they'll be like, we'll put up our different titles to do A/B testing on just some like boilerplate kind of, content, or their short summary or whatever, to try to get people to see what kind of rates it can get for people to click off of just like text, right, from like a Google ad. And we and we've heard people claim that they got these huge results by doing this kind of stuff now and then, but there's always been this huge distance between the thing that you're testing and where it actually has to happen, because even if the content is the same, it's not the same people who are like doing a Google search.
Not the same context, right?
And it's not the same context at all versus people who are like on Steam trying to decide if they want to look at a game. So the contexts are so different. And I think the gap between engagement with video content and engagement with a video game, I think from a media gap standpoint, is like the smallest of the available gaps where you can actually do experiments, because the only thing that comes closer is an actual game, is demos. But you can't A/B test a demo. That's a...
Well, beyond that, it lets you answer the question that we said earlier, which is like, how easy would it be for someone else to make a video that gets a good, healthy amount of views? Can you even do it? Can you do it as a dev with your own content? Because if you can't, probably no one else can either.
The person who knows the game inside and out and has full control over the game can't make a video out of the game that people find compelling. Will anyone be able to do that? And it also, I think, it helps you understand just whether your game has legs.
Yeah.
Like, will it go anywhere? And you don't have to launch the game in 2 years to figure out whether people give a shit about it. You can start answering those questions early, and also it probably pushes your development into a better place, which is it will, if you're doing, let's say, a weekly YouTube short about your game, it pushes you to focus on things that people actually give a shit about, right? Because you'll be trying to make things that look good, that feel good to play, that are interesting to talk about, that are interesting to show. And those are the things that will help sell the game. And they'll also make the game more fun, right? Versus, if you spend the next 2 weeks optimizing something nobody cares about, because again, like if you optimize like how fast the game saves to disk and not a single person buys the game, did you really optimize anything?
No, it was never saved to disk. You know what I mean? If
nothing was ever saved, and you don't want to go into the like Randy Pitchford mode of like, I don't know if you guys have heard what's been going on with the new Borderlands.
Oh
game,
yeah, no, he's just popping off. It's hilarious. It's ridiculous.
Obviously optimize your game, but don't put so much stock in that you spend years optimizing a game that nobody will play. Optimize for fun, optimize for marketability, and then optimize for performance. So it's been a very interesting week. And like I said, we're recording this episode before Levelhead goes on sale, before Crashens 2 up to 1.3. So we'll have more to say about the actual outcomes of those things in the next episode.
And we are doing these experiments with a pretty short lead time, because we started doing this like basically a week and a half before all this big stuff is happening, right? So it's one of those, we're going to do the best we can to like make guesses about what matters and try stuff and so on. But we unfortunately aren't coming in with like, we're really confident that if we do this and have this video content, it's going to do really well.
The beauty is we don't have to be confident anymore.
Just throw stuff out. And the game's going to be on sale for 2 weeks, and it's not really about the start date. Because that's the other thing too, right? Is like the start date is a Steam daily deal, which means that Steam is going to show it to a fuckload of people on the start date. And again, that's more than we could ever, there's nothing we can do compared to a Steam daily deal. So everything that we're doing doesn't even matter compared to that daily deal day. But the rest of the sale time, though, that's when we're trying to figure out, like, okay, Steam did what it can do, the max
Now, what
possible
can we
thing.
do?
What can we do? Can we just buoy up the rest of this 2-week long sale experience by trying out content the whole time? Like all 2 weeks, we should be putting out stuff.
It's marketing month, baby.
Let's go.
Yeah, we're going.
See what we can do. Yep.
Well, I guess it'll be October at that point. So, marketing months.
Yeah.
We gotta learn this. We gotta learn how to sell stuff. So, anyways, that's interesting. I'm very excited to see where that all ends up. But that's all the time we have for this week's episode. We'd like to thank our producers Fat Bard and Sampa DaCosta for putting the podcast together, and thanks to our community moderators who keep our Discord running. To get more involved in the Butterscotch community, just go to podcast.bscotch.net, where we have links to the Discord, a way for you to donate to support the podcast, and links to the archives. And if you haven't yet, head on over to Steam, the App Store, and Google Play, and pick up pretty much all of our games,
Anything.
Crashlands 2, Levelhead, Crashlands. And if you've been playing them and you haven't yet, go ahead and give those a review, because that helps boost them on the store, and we'd appreciate it. So thank you all for listening. We'll see you next week.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Bye.